All right, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you attending today on such short notice, but we are excited to present you with some very, very good news on an operation that has occurred here in Lakeland. What I'd like to do is introduce who's here with me today. To my right is Robert O'Neill. He's the United States Attorney of the Middle District of Florida. And to my left is Julie Torres. She's the Special Agent in charge, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, or ATF. She's from the Tampa Field Division. Move the mic. Okay, how is that? Is that better for everyone? All right, you got me now. Do I need to do any of that again? Okay. I'm going to give a brief statement and the information on the operation. Each one of the people here will also be making some comments. We will take questions at the conclusion of all three of our comments. I want to give you a little bit of heads up right now, get kind of the things that you're going to be seeing and hearing. What you see in front of you are not actual evidentiary guns that we'll be talking about. These are sampling of the types of guns that we did confiscate throughout this operation. We can answer questions about that at a later time. So let's go ahead and get started. What I want to tell you about today is what we call Operation Smoking Guns. The Lakeland Police Department Special Investigations Section and the United States Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms conducted a 6-month undercover operation within the city limits of Lakeland. Operation Smoking Guns was initiated to address the rise of firearm-related crime within the city limits of Lakeland to include home invasions, robberies, and shootings. As you know, in December of 2011, the Lakeland Police Department lost our officer Arnolfo Crispin after he was killed after checking out with suspicious people in one of our residential parks here. He was shot in the head with a firearm. The number of police-involved shootings were also on the rise at that time when this operation was proposed. During 2011, right here in Lakeland, there were approximately 174 incidents with firearms, 411 shots fired calls within the city limits. ATF trace data revealed that 455 firearms were recovered by the Lakeland Police Department between January 2010 and December of 2011. The goal of this operation, Operation Smoking Guns, the goal of this between the ATF and the Lakeland Police Department was to identify and target subjects in the community involved in the illegal possession and sale of firearms and gather evidence to ensure successful prosecution in federal and state courts. It was accomplished by the undercover operation to purchase firearms, drugs, and other contraband throughout the course of the operation. You know, this is very timely because of the increase that we've seen not only here but across the nation in gun violence. This is something that has been an important priority for us here at the Lakeland Police Department for this community, and we have been working very hard to bring this to a successful conclusion. We're going to talk about this being phase 1 because there's more work to be done, but this is a great start. We are very excited about the results. I want to commend the undercover ATF agents and detectives in our Special Investigations Section with the Lakeland Police Department for the success of this operation and for their dedication and commitment in a high-risk and very stressful environment. So I'm betting you're wanting me to stop talking about all that and tell you about the successful operation. The results of this operation are as follows. And remember, we started this in July and it ran through December. 47 suspects faced multiple indictments, federal and state charges. Now, when I say multiple, 47 will result in hundreds of charges and hopefully convictions in our federal and our state courts. 109 firearms of all varieties were purchased. Some samples of the firearms are on display here. And no trace data has been done on the firearms that we have purchased and confiscated. That will be phase 2 of the operation. We also purchased 324 grams of crack cocaine, 242 grams of powder cocaine, 31 grams of methamphetamine, 62 pills. 602 pills, such as oxycodone, hydrocodone, and Xanax, and 932 grams of marijuana. Now, at the conclusion of our undercover operation, It brought us to today, is when we did the roundup of all of the subjects that were targeting. Roundup today, members of the Lakeland Police Department, ATF agents from Tampa and Orlando initiated roundup operation beginning this morning at 4 o'clock in the morning to locate and arrest the subjects involved in this undercover operation. As of this time, we have arrested 22. That changed again, 23 of the 47 subjects who have outstanding warrants for their arrest. Now, we encourage anyone who is aware of or think they may be subject to arrest as a result of this operation to please come forward and turn themselves in. We will continue to diligently search for all wanted subjects until all are in custody. Of the 23 arrests, 17 are facing federal charges, 6 are facing state charges. Additional information on the state charges, which is what we can give you today specifically, will be provided to you after this press conference. We have 5 that are incarcerated already on other charges for other cases who will face additional charges as a result of this undercover operation. We have 12 that are still at large, and we know who they are, and we intend to find them. So if you know who you are, please come turn yourself in. That's the easiest way. We have 7 of the 47 that are still unidentified. We have every faith and every indication that we will identify those as well and bring this to conclusion. Just this morning, in addition to what I just said, the undercover operation netted, just this morning we were able to confiscate an additional $19,501 in cash and 2 additional firearms, bringing that to 111 guns from this operation. This morning we were able to confiscate an AK-47 type assault rifle, fully loaded, and a Glock handgun. So with that, I'm going to ask Mr. O'Neill, United States Attorney, to make his comments.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon, everybody. First, I'd like to say on behalf of the United States Attorney's Office, it's a privilege to work with the Lakeland Police Department as well as the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives on this joint operation. It was designed in part and in large measure to address the high rate of firearm-related crime that's occurring here in the city of Lakeland. As the Chief mentioned, the tragic death of Officer Crispin was a sobering moment, and it brought even more attention to the fact that there is so much violent crime. And so the Chief and her department, in conjunction with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, decided to do this joint operation. And it's sort of indicative of what we do around here and what we can accomplish, especially combining forces both on the Lakeland city level and the federal government level. We put it together, we operate together, we work together, and an operation like this is so much more successful before that. The Chief talked about the crime stats, the number of shooting-related crimes occurring in Lakeland, and that precipitated this investigation. I have all of the statistics, but the Chief has mentioned that and will be available to speak more about that at the end. I do want to state that this is also a joint operation on the federal prosecution level and the local prosecution. These people will be prosecuted, a number of them federally and a number of them on state charges. One of the charges I'd like to just highlight is the Armed Career Criminal Statute, which we use quite effectively on the federal level. 5 of the individuals have been charged with that. If convicted, they'll face a mandatory minimum period of incarceration of 15 years. And so utilization of a statute like that allows us to target the worst of the worst and put people like that out of the community for a sustained period of time. It's a very effective statute and something that we work well with. So again, I'd really commend Lakeland Police Department, its chief, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, Special Agent in charge, Julie Torres, and I think these are the kind of operations that we need to work to make an effective dent in what's going on in terms of violent crime in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Good afternoon. Today's investigation was conducted utilizing ATF's new business model called Frontline, which simply brings the best practices that we have used across the nation, and it allows us to focus our efforts to assess what is the problem, to agree on a plan, to dedicate resources, and measure ourselves to ensure that we're meeting the set goals and objectives. And Operation Smoking Guns is a prime example of this business model. Through collaboration and our commitment to focus on reducing violent crime, we work together as a force multiplier, and we address the illegal possession and sales of firearms by convicted felons and suspects who sold drugs in our community, and today we're seeing the impact of that commitment. During this operation, our agents utilize sophisticated undercover techniques and expertise to develop and further this investigation. We all brought resources to the investigation that would otherwise not been available had we not taken the time to share and gather actionable intelligence. Through this operation, we removed over 100 firearms, ranging from revolvers to pistols to shotguns and rifles, all from the criminal elements, of which 5 were stolen during the course of the case, thus allowing us to prevent future shootings and violent crimes. I want to thank our U.S. Attorney, Mr. O'Neill, for his continued support to law enforcement, and to Chief Womack for her leadership in undertaking this initiative, and to all of our agents and officers for all the hard work and the long hours put forth during the past few months, and to all of you for being here with us today. Thank you.
Before we open it for questions, I'd like to acknowledge who also helped us with the roundup today, the agencies that were represented besides ATF, U.S. Attorneys, LPD. We also have FDLE, who provided tech support for our roundup, and we have members of their staff here as well. So I don't want to fail to say thank you for everyone that helped this successful operation today. We will go ahead and open it up for questions. We'll start here and then we'll move to the back.
Chief, can you kind of just characterize how this operation basically worked? I mean, were undercover people putting the word out that they wanted to buy guns? Just kind of explain the operation a little more.
At the request of our federal partners, we're going to decline to talk about the specifics of the operation at this point, because we still have some people that are outstanding that we're looking for, as well as being able to bring some things to a successful conclusion. We will release additional details about the specifics of the operation at a later time, but we're not prepared to do that at this point. I've got Ryan, and then I've got back here.
Just to follow up on her question real quick, I mean, can you simply say that officers or there was an exchange of money for guns?
Yes, there was an undercover operation that allowed us to engage in an entrepreneur operation, and then I'm going to leave it at that point and see if there's something further that ATF would like to add to that.
Just really quick, I'm just a little confused. I'm sure I'm missing something with the numbers here. Between the state release and the DOJ release, I'm seeing 23 people from the state release, and then there's 25 followed by 16. Can you
Let me give you what we know right now. This has changed because we completed our actual officers in the field about noon. We have had some walk-ins since that time, so things have changed. So what I know as of right now is that we have 23 total arrested today. That is 17 facing federal charges and 6 facing state charges. That's the total of 23. We have 5 of the 47 that were in custody already on other charges not related to this operation that we'll be adding the charges to. There are 12 still at large that we have identified, and 7 additional that we are still working to identify. That should bring your total to 47. Ken?
This is a two-part question. Maybe it's for Mr. O'Neill. Number one, what kind of an impact is this going to make when we're talking about, I think, a total of 43 people? And then the other thing is we're talking about how many guns are in the hands of criminals in Lakeland. Does Lakeland stand out that maybe more are in the hands of criminals here than elsewhere? Or is this pretty much typical of Florida in 2013?
You know, given the, and I'll start with the second part of your question, Ken. Given our experience here in Lakeland and what we know regionally throughout the state and nationally, that Lakeland is fairly common within the statistics. So to say that it stands out in the state, not necessarily. What it is that we knew we had an issue and we went after it and targeted it. So the success of this operation is what we continue to concentrate on, is the way the operation was conducted. As I said, I know you want additional details, and we'll get to that. But the way the operation was conducted allowed us to really hit it hard and heavy, and have a great deal of success in a short amount of time. And so that is what I think is the model that was utilized, as Special Agent in Charge Torres indicated. This was a very sophisticated operation that really had a good target and a good success rate out of it. Anything you want to add on that one? Prosecution, okay.
The impact, what difference is this going to make?
I think this is going to make a huge impact. I think this is going to send a message to our bad guys here in Lakeland that we're simply not going to tolerate this. You are not going to, you know, guns in the hands of felons is never a good mix. So being able to get this many guns off the street. Folks, you're looking at guns that were in the possession of people that are committing crimes with them. These are the folks that are using them for violent crimes. These are the folks that are using them for other bad things here in our community. We got bad guns off the street. We were able to target the right people and get the ones that we know were going to be utilized at one time or another in a violent crime off of the street in our community. That's the impact of this one. You're looking at 111 total weapons that we do believe were in the hands of people who intended to use them for violent crime. Of that, 47 of those we hope we won't see back in our community for a very long time. Yes, ma'am.
Was it concentrated in any certain part of Lakeland, and are all the people, the 23 people that were arrested, were they all connected somehow?
No and no, not necessarily. We didn't concentrate on any one geographic area. We were operating our operation inside the city limits, but the people that we were targeting are those that were those criminals that were in possession of weapons. So while we were doing a very local operation, if we could get bad guys off the street for other communities and other areas, we would do that. We were happy to do that as well. Whatever the connection may be between the 47, that's a lot of people to be connected. So we do have some that had connections here and there, but not all of them was connected. Not all of them were connected to each other. Follow up.
On a different topic, how many undercover officers from LPD were involved in the operation?
I'm going to decline to offer that at this time. We will be able to provide you more specifics of the operation itself at a later time.
What were the advantages of teaming up with the feds as opposed to just doing this yourself?
The resources that you can bring to the table, being able, the federal prosecution of these cases, as you said, as Mr. O'Neill pointed out, there are mandatory sentencing that removes criminals from our community for an extended period of time that may not be available to us on the state side. The resources that our federal partners can bring to bear is huge. They have pools of resources that are not readily available to us here locally. So the partnership works. We provide them manpower and resources and knowledge of the local area, and they bring to us manpower and resources that we don't have available to us. Plus, you add in the prosecutorial strength that comes from partnering at the federal level. It's huge.
Just to clear one thing up, it says you arrested 23 today. This was a 6-month operation. Was the tail end of it here, is the last minute push to make the arrests, or did you do arrests throughout the whole operation?
The way I will give you a general answer on that. The way an undercover operation normally works is that you make the cases, you obtain the indictments and the arrest warrants, and then you do a roundup on those arrests. So I would have to ask that question and get back to you on whether or not we made any arrests. Some arrests could have been made to preserve the integrity of the operation. I don't believe that to be the case, but all of the arrests that were a direct result of this operation were attempted today. It was a roundup today. Any other questions?
Was ammunition confiscated as well?
We do. Yes, it was. Do you have? I don't have those statistics in front of me of what the ammunition was.
Yes, we did, but not a lot.
We'll get that. We'll get that back to you.
Does Mr. O'Neill mind stepping to the mic? Our mic cut out during your spiel there. Maybe you can just
Thanks a lot.
maybe address the impact you feel to this community.
Well, and in answering the question earlier, I think the Chief did a very good job of doing that. The impact should be large in an area like this, and it was through the initiative of the Lakeland Police Department along with ATF to realize, hey, if there's a problem with violent crime, let's come with a different approach and let's try something new. And that's why the details will come out and the Chief will be able to tell you, but at this time you don't want to do that yet while several of the fugitives are still on the street. What we try to do is blend the federal resources, the state resources, put them together, and you notice a number of the individuals will be prosecuted in state court, and that's important. We try many times in these operations to look at where the people will get a better bang for the buck. Will it be better to prosecute an individual federally or state? And in an operation like this, when we work together, that's something we try to do. And so those individuals that are armed career criminals, we're going to prosecute federally. Again, you know, the presumption of innocence attaches, and we won't know, but if convicted, they then face a mandatory minimum of 15 years in jail, which is a very substantial period of time, and they will no longer be a thorn in the side of this community during that period of time. So it really is this force multiplier of putting together the various resources, which is very helpful. And again, I'd commend the Lakeland Police Department for doing this.
Yes, ma'am.
Of the people that you all have arrested so far, is there any, I don't know, have you all been able to tie or have seen that there's a tie to maybe like a shooting that happened in Lakeland? Like sometimes once in a while there's a shooting, but it's kind of hard because no witnesses don't come forward. Have you seen that maybe some of these people were involved in those shootings?
Given the nature of an undercover operation, the actual suspects that were arrested today, we will start those comparisons to our other cases, and we will work our way through that. So I don't have that information for you today. It will be part of the phase 2 of the operation to see if there's any overlap with any of our other cases. But to generally answer your question, no, we don't have a major overlap of the 47 between some of our other cases, but we're working our way through that as well.
And did you say that you were, that kind of part of the next phase is to look to see where some of these firearms came from?
In order to maintain the integrity of this investigation, the guns that we have confiscated were not entered into the ATF gun trace system. We will be doing that now, and so we have additional follow-up to do.
How long does that process take?
Depending on the weapon, but normally, it could take 2-3 weeks before we get traces back. Maybe collectively analyzing this kind of information with the number of guns that we have, it'll probably take us a little longer. But it was that trace information that really, when the Chief decided, it was like she mentioned earlier today, that 405 guns that she initially recovered, it was analyzing those recoveries, the type of crimes that they were used, the location, the possessors, and that's really, what's the bread and butter of like this, the core of the intelligence information that allowed us to then build up from there. So.
One quick question, Chief, and I apologize if you already said this, but are most of these guns legal guns, or are they illegal because they're in the hands of people that shouldn't?
Yes. Yes and no. What we said specifically is that only 5 of the weapons that we recovered were reported stolen during the period of our operation. So that we know for sure. The rest of it is what we're going to work our way through. But that clearly they were in the hands of people who had them illegally, or we would not have been able to obtain the indictments as we did. So whether the weapon was illegal or the person that was possessing it illegally, those two things go hand in hand.
Is that a federal statute, the felon in possession, or is that state?
There's both.
There's both.
There is both. Anyone else? We're happy to answer any other questions if anybody has. At the conclusion, I had a...
Could you characterize, like, what's the worst gun, the biggest firepower?
Yeah, you mind maybe saying or showing it to you or telling us what we're looking at there?
I'm going to ask some of our guys to come up and help with that. Lieutenant Sisson, no?
No, actually, what I was going to share with them, just to give you an idea of some of the weapons, and maybe that might help out a little here. With some of the weapons that, when we talk about the whole 109, we had about, and because of the change, the recoveries from today, some of the numbers might change, but just to give you an idea, about 31 revolvers. You had in there, makes like Smith & Wesson, Torres. You had, and of all, 38s, different type, 22s, different types of calibers. We had about 33 pistols, 22 shotguns, Remington and Mossberg type. And then we had rifles, about 21 of them so far. I guess with the additional ones that we got this morning, I'll make that like 22. But in there you had your Norenko assault rifles, SKAs. You had your Colt AR-15. So it's really this operation really netted very, as you could see, a variety of different types of weapons and calibers, and from handguns to line guns.
We can provide, if you want to see an example, have one of the guys hold up the different examples. To answer the question of the worst one, they're all bad. So I'm going to start with that. Any weapon, any handgun, any rifle, regardless of the caliber, can kill someone. From the smallest caliber, a 22 small handgun to an assault rifle can kill someone. So to say that the worst of the worst, they're all bad, particularly in the hands of people that want to use them for criminal activity. So I know if there's any interest in us holding up any as a demonstration of what it is, we'll do that. But it's a variety. This represents from the scale of what we confiscated during this operation.
If someone could hold up an example of an assault, one of the assault rifles.
There's an AK over here.
And once again, these are just representative. These are not the actual guns.
These are not the actual weapons. These are actually weapons that we have previously confiscated, so that were in the possession of the Lakeland Police Department. These are examples.
What type of gun?
Honestly, vector arms rifle, 762, and remember these are examples of the type of guns that we bought. And I also want to point out that there's 40 here, and we bought 109, 111 now. So these are some samples, but certainly not the quantity. And like the Chief said, all varieties, all calibers, and we did buy quite a bit of ammunition as well. Shotguns, handguns. Another Vector arms, this is an AK-47. But I will say ATF, they're the experts on the guns. But there was no shortage, I'll say that were available, readily available for purchase.
Chief, is there a reason why we don't have actual guns that were confiscated?
Absolutely, because they're still considered evidence in an ongoing active investigation. And because of the fact that it's state and federal charges, there are different evidentiary rules of what can and cannot be displayed based on the type of charge it is. And so it is to maintain the integrity of the process. Our ultimate goal in all of this is to have successful prosecution of the suspects that we're arresting. And so we're being very cautious with the rules of evidence on that. Anything final? Once again, I'd like to commend all of the folks. You see around the room some of the people that were involved in the overall operation. I can tell you that the Lakeland Police Department and as they quickly leave, I can tell you that the Lakeland Police Department, in partnership with the ATF, are very, very thrilled with the outcome of this operation. We are honored to have worked so closely with ATF. I would say that you might see more partnerships like this in the future. And we appreciate Mr. O'Neill and Special Agent Torres for being here with us today and thanking them for their efforts. Thank you all for being here.